Hey, Luminary, welcome to May. After our quite bumpy beginning of the year, we are settling into this full bloom energy, and it is time to invoke your big ideas. So, if you're a change maker, a leader, a spiritual entrepreneur, listen in as I share the highlights of the May 2024 StarCast. Before we dive in, if you want to be notified whenever a new video drops, hit that subscribe button. If you already have, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for supporting this channel, Star Powered with Leslie Tagorda. That's me. Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino-Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. Okay, friends. Hello. Welcome to the Business StarCast. I am Leslie Tagorda, your brand and leadership astrologer, focusing on how we can use astrology for our change making and our inner awakening. And today I want to share a little bit about the May cosmic weather. What's going on in the cosmos now that we are already in May? I am recording this kind of late on May 1st. It's already 11 a.m., but you know what? Better late than never. So today, I just want to give you kind of a highlight of what we're going to be doing today because I have something a little bit new and different for you. So we are going to see how this works out. So in today's episode, I want to go over all of the May highlights, the big transits, the big events, the big meetups that we have in May in the astrology forecast. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that Pluto retrograde, which starts on May 2nd, that we're already feeling. And then we're just going to talk about Gemini for just a little bit, because in May, we have a giant shift as we get to that third week of May, where Sun, Venus, and Jupiter move into chatty, curious Gemini. And this is the new part. I am going to share a May forecast for all signs so that you can focus in on your change making work and leadership and make the most of this month. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, it is May, and May 1st, we might know this as May Day, where we have all of the flower garlands. And where I was born and raised in Hawaii, May Day is Lei Day. And leis, of course, are those flower garlands. And on Lei Day in Hawaii, we give each other leis, and we have these festivals and these parades where each island shows off their beautiful floral bounty. So I don't know if you knew this, but each Hawaiian island has a symbolic flower. On Maui, it's the pink lokelani, which is also a lokelani as a rose or a heavenly flower. On Oahu, the island I am from, it's this beautiful sunny yellow golden Ilima flower. Each of the islands have all of their flowers, and during the May Day parades, you would have these like processions, like the prince and princess of each island would be sitting on horses, and the horses are covered in these leis of flowers. The paniolo, or the cowboys, would be following the horses, and everybody is dressed beautifully in their May Day finest. And so when we think about the offering or the gifting of leis, these leis are given as a symbol of aloha, right? You've heard people like the touristy kind of aloha, but really the way you pronounce the word is aloha or aloha. And so when we think about this aloha, this word has such a rich and vast meaning. Of course, it represents love, it represents hope and joy, it represents greetings and goodbyes. So today, as we invoke May, let us invoke aloha, which combines the word alo, which is in the presence of, and ha, the breath of life that we share together. So when we are greeting each other with the word aloha, what we're really saying to each other is, together we share our being and breath. And so similar, like in like the Hindu greeting of like namaste, let the light in me recognize the light in you. Aloha is together we share our being and our breath. And I think that this is such a beautiful way to initiate this lovely month because, oh my gosh, we've been through so much turbulence at the beginning of the year, January, February, March, April, with our eclipses and the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, and like all the meetups with the North Node and Chiron meeting up with the eclipses. And it's all energy that we needed for us to open up and take that next level. But when we are going through so many shifts and changes and these growth spurts and these progress, we need a little bit of time to integrate. And so now much of that cosmic storm has passed. We have now learned and recognized what we need to shed, like all the things that no longer serve us, what we need to galvanize, meaning what we need to invest and devote ourselves through committed action based on what is worth to us, and what we need to fix so that we can fill in the gaps to get to where we need to be. And so it's beautiful to get to do this because even if you think about if after like a storm, and I don't want to think about like the drastic massive epic storms that we've been facing lately, but just say even like a rainstorm, we might have some like how we had just a couple of weeks ago, we had some flooding into our kitchen window because like the I forget what those things are called, the pipes that oh my gosh, words. I don't have the words today, but they were clogged. And so all the rain, instead of going down the pipes, were going straight into our kitchen window. Now, right, we need to get rid of the blocks in that blocked pipe. We need to galvanize, making sure that there's a cage above the top of that pipe so it doesn't get blocked again. And then we need to fix, like dry up all of the places in our kitchen that got flooded, make sure that the window panes, the wood didn't get soaking wet so that mold doesn't form. It's okay to do these things. It's not taking away, but it's making us stronger. And so when we think about that symbolism in terms of our businesses and in our work and our change making work and our leadership, May is this energy that we now get to appreciate what matters and then integrate. So my theme for May for us change makers is called Invoking Your Big Ideas. And to me, the vibe of May is ideas and ideals. And there's this energy of humming and buzzing and vocalizing and amplifying and cross pollinating. If you read my last email, if you're on my email newsletter list, I was talking about this one, this vining bush that we have right outside of our backyard on the pergola. And it buzzes for like about a week out of every year because it blooms these beautiful white flowers that the bees just love. And when the bees tell each other and cross pollinate and tell all of the bees in the neighborhood, they all come and they gather around this bush in our backyard, and our pergola, our deck in the backyard is just buzzing. And to me, that is that energy of us all coming together to cross pollinate, to share our ideas, to scatter information across the wind. That's truly what this kind of Gemini energy is all about. And I know we're still in Taurus season, but we're quickly approaching Gemini season. And in that kind of that transition, there is this embodied information exchange that creates that vibration of that humming and that buzzing. And when we can like really activate our throat chakra to find our voice, to express our big ideas that we're really going to be needing as Jupiter moves into Gemini, to open up that part of our throat chakra is really to do those vocalizing and those exercising of humming and buzzing and, all those things from like buzzing your lips to the things that you can feel that vibration on your throat chakra, on your throat. And that's that kind of energy that May has for me. And so in our businesses and in our lives and our work, it's really a time to really appreciate what we have. Like, we're going to still have more values come in as we, approach our Taurus new moon next week, to set our intentions and around what we appreciate, what is value, what is worthiness to us. All of that information that we learn from our Jupiter Uranus conjunction. You can go back to that episode, a couple of episodes back, about that Jupiter Uranus conjunction, about setting that new cycle of like devotion and investment. And it's also time to integrate and invoke. And so I love looking at the etymology of words, because it gives me so much more meaning in how I want to like talk about the symbolism of this word. And so if my theme for May is invoking your big ideas, well, what is it to invoke? To invoke is to call forth and to implement. And in terms of like this Taurus to Gemini, this is about invoking your voice, that embodiment of your message. Oof, I love that. So let's take a look at kind of like the overview of the highlights, and then we'll dive deeper into some of the energies that I feel is most resonant for us change makers. Now, as I mentioned, May is an integration month, so it's mostly quiet after all of like the loud transits that we've had in the beginning of the year. And thank goodness it's quiet right now, because we have to definitely batten up the hatches, because as we get later into the year towards fall, when we have that Mars retrograde, it's going to be opposing Pluto during the eclipse, during the election cycle in the States. We're going to have yet another storm. So let's really appreciate this time, have gratitude for this time, and get the things that are really important done. Okay. So May is mostly quiet in the sky and opens up tomorrow with Pluto coming to a standstill before it reverses direction on May 2nd. Now, for all intents and purposes, because Pluto is so far out, and I'll talk more about this, Pluto is already stationed. Like, meaning coming to a complete stop. Pluto moves so slowly, and it's just kind of like crawling along by the minute, not even by the degree, out in the cosmos. And so this part of May is this Pluto retrograde, station retrograde, is likely the most challenging aspect of the month. Later in the month, we have some like Uranian aspects and things, which are lots of surprises. But in terms of like pressure, I feel like this very beginning, this Pluto retrograde, it feels just kind of extra intense, especially if you have planets around these early degrees of fixed signs. So I'll talk more about that in just a bit. But by the time we come to next week on May 7th, we have a beautiful Taurus new moon on May 7th. So on that second week, I want you to make sure that you're marking your calendar to do your new moon ritual, set your new moon intention for your change making work to create more sustainable abundance, value, embodied peace. If you've been wanting to attract more money and offer more value in your work, this is that new moon that you need to really set your value, set a new intention for this new cycle of value. Now, things start to get exciting by the time we get to the third week of May, when the moon starts to gain its light, starts to wax in light after that new moon, and you'll be picking up momentum to take creative action on all of the visioning, all the expansion, all that up leveling that has happened for the last few months. Okay, because first, remember that Jupiter Uranus conjunction that we had in April, when they met up at Taurus at 21 degrees. Jupiter is moving much faster than Uranus. The sun will first meet up with Uranus. That happens on the 13th, on May 13th. And then later that week on May 18th, the sun now meets up with Jupiter. And so when the sun meets up with the planet, this begins the next cycle of that kind of the solar cycle between those two planets, a new revolution. So we can think of it also as kind of that new moon energy. So first we had that new intention set up between Jupiter, Uranus, and Jupiter, really creating what is that value that we want to invest in? What is that up leveling that we are doing in our own work and how we're going to invest and devote into it? And now when the sun meets up, the sun is like our creative source, and how we have to now take our willpower and our action and our zone of genius and actually do something about it. What are you going to do about it? What willpower are you going to be using? So when the sun first meets up with Uranus, sparking that new action in Taurus, then this is like, okay, well, what action are you going to be taking so that you can take those quantum leaps? Now, we've already done those quantum leaps internally, but now we have to take action on it. So, what Uranian action do you want to take action on? And then Jupiter, Sun Jupiter conjunction, this is always such a bountiful time when the Sun and Jupiter meets up. It is such a bright time because Jupiter, our largest planet in our solar system, has so much electromagnetic energy. It's almost like it's not as, of course, it's not as powerful as the sun, but it has that kind of same brightness, expansion, energy giving. So when the sun and Jupiter meet up, then I'm kind of biased with this with this aspect because I'm born with this Sun Jupiter conjunction. It's just like so much gratitude. It's so much abundance. It's so much bounty. And so, how are you going to take action? Again, the Sun. What is your zone of genius? What do you do differently? And how are you going to expand that? So, Uranus to innovate. Jupiter to expand. Again, this progress. The Sun is saying, take action, especially that third week. The moon is going to have your back with that gaining light. So, whatever you do, mark your calendar for that third week of May to get shit done, because you're going to have that wind, that momentum of the cosmos on your side, picking up speed. Your willpower will be ignited in order to bring these creative endeavors and creative visions into reality. Now, by the time we get to the fourth week of May, this is when the wind really picks up, the wind beneath your wings, right? It's that kind of those tailwinds that allow planes to travel so much faster because now they have the support of the wind instead of just using their own internal fuel. And so Gemini, remember, it's an air sign and it is fast moving, mutable air. So by the time that week of the 20th, first the sun on the 20th, Gemini, sun moves into Gemini. And then on the day of the full moon on May 23rd, Venus moves into Gemini. But first, before Venus moves into Gemini, she says hello to Jupiter and has a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, like, hello, the two benefics in the sky. That's such an auspicious day of Venus and Jupiter coming together right before Venus moves into Gemini, meets up with Jupiter, then moves into Gemini. Then later that day, the sun is sitting in Sagittarius across the way from that Gemini sun on that full moon. So definitely mark May 23rd. It feels like a celebration day, a truly beautiful, optimistic full moon, a power day. So give your thanks on that day. Do your full moon reflections. See those silver linings. Like, just enjoy that day. And then later that week on May 25th, we have been waiting for this. Jupiter leaves Taurus and moves into Gemini. I'm going to be recording a full podcast episode on that as well. So I'll give some highlights about that in just a little bit. But, that third week between the 20th and the 25th, we have just like this wind picking up, this Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. And so just such a beautiful week. And you know that all these energies, as these energies move into Gemini, as soon as they come into those earliest degrees of that air sign, they're going to be trining with Pluto that is still in Aquarius. Okay, so as these three planets move into Gemini, they trine powerful, impactful, intense Pluto. And so Pluto in Aquarius still has that kind of social consciousness, that collective consciousness, that the hopes and the dreams, and how can we give it a little Plutonian intensity in terms of like empowerment, impact, all of the positives that Pluto can do. And so if you're a change maker, you'll notice this energy here for us is really to invoke your big ideas, to find your voice, to speak your truth, to speak your message. Oof, it's just the beginning. So as we wrap up the month ends with Mercury now fully out of the shadow zone. It moves out of the shadow zone on the 13th, but at the very last transit of the month, we have on the 30th, Mercury meets up with Uranus. So maybe you get some surprise ahas, some surprise perspectives, or maybe a DM with an opportunity or a chance that comes in that brings some good news. I love those kinds of DMs. So, in short, if you're a change maker and you're wanting to find your message or hone it to be laser focused, May 2024 is your chance to integrate all that has shifted in the first 4 months about your vision, your values, and your leadership. If you want to read the entire full written May StarCast, make sure you are on my email newsletter. I send a StarCast every month, plus, just updates, latest episodes, what's going on, latest offers. Head on over to starpowered.com/StarCast and sign up for free there. Of course, you know that my astrology is definitely focused on how we show up and identify in our leadership, our work, so that we can make our mark in our brand. Okay, so let's go over a few more highlights for May. We have, of course, our Pluto retrograde on May 2nd, new moon in Taurus on May 7th. Mercury leaves the shadow zone on May 13th. Yay! Our thoughts full speed ahead in Aries, the final degrees of Aries, just going whew. And then Mercury then enters Taurus 2 days later. So, all of those innovations and that trailblazing, how are we really going to savor that, embody that, slow it down so we're not such a rush? Our thoughts are not such a rush, listening to our body to give us some information as Mercury moves into Taurus. I love that. Mercury in Taurus is not so much intellectual, but it's really embodied. And so if you have a Mercury, your own Mercury in Taurus, it's really learning the intelligence of your body and listening how your body is communicating to you. On the 20th, as I mentioned earlier, the sun moves into Gemini. We'll have our beautiful Gemini season. We have that power day of May 23rd, where we have our full moon in Sagittarius that is preceded by Venus entering Gemini, preceded by Venus conjunct Jupiter, like just such a beautiful day. Mark that one on your calendar. And then May 25th, whew, big day with Jupiter entering Gemini for the next year, next 13 months or so. So next up, let's kind of talk about this Pluto retrograde a little bit. Fun fact about these Pluto retrogrades. Did you know that Pluto is always in its shadow zone? Pluto moves so slowly, and we are really grateful that Pluto moves slowly, because when we have a Pluto transit, meaning Pluto aspecting one of our natal planets or, transiting a house, it's doing like a full remodel on that area of our life. Thinking of, I said remodel because I'm thinking about, we're looking to maybe buy a new home, and like, do we want to buy a home that's ready to move in, or do we want to buy a home that needs some upgrades? What kind of upgrades does it need? Does it just need cosmetic upgrades, like, a little refresh where we're just, changing out our wardrobe? Or do we need to like tear everything down back to like the studs, the bones of like the house, and rebuild everything again? And so when we're talking about Pluto's process is tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it again. Now, sometimes people are like, I don't want to tear the whole thing down. However, we are so grateful for Pluto because Pluto tears the whole thing down and makes this rich, composting, fertile soil from what it's torn down. And then from that fertile compost and soil, something absolutely powerful and strong and new is reborn. So even though if you're going through a Pluto transit, it can feel terrible as you're going through it, what is reborn on the other side is amazing. And so that is the reason why we are so grateful that Pluto takes its time. Because if Pluto was rushing through this process, let me tell you, that intensity happening in a shorter time span, ooh, I don't know if like our fragile little human souls and beings could actually handle that kind of transformation in such a short time. And so on April on April on May 2nd, Pluto stops at Aquarius of 2 degrees to begin its retrograde all the way through October 11th. Right. So Pluto, when it moves, it generally moves about 2 or 3 degrees a year. It does like this 3 degrees forward, 2 degrees back, 3 degrees forward, 2 degrees back, 3 degrees forward, 2 degrees back. And so it feels kind of it feels like, oh, Pluto, you're just taking your time. And Pluto takes 250, I should know this, 250 or 60 odd years to go through the chart. United States is still in the middle of its own Pluto return. It's just like, wow, it's a long time. And when we have our Pluto retrograde for just at that moment in time, Pluto, where it stops, it is going to feel intense. I often talk about acupuncture because I love acupuncture. I've been having this kind of shoulder pain lately, and when I went to go to get acupuncture the last couple of weeks, she put a needle right where I was having the most shoulder pain, and the needles are just very surface. They never ever really bruise, but for whatever reason, she got the exact right spot, and I developed a bruise because that muscle was so tight, it was so intense, it needed that release. That's kind of like a Plutonian pressure point right there, where that transformation that just needed that let go. And so when we have this Pluto stopping, if you don't have anything at that Aquarius 2 degree mark, like if you don't have a planet there, if you don't have a planet opposite in Leo, or a planet squaring in Taurus or Scorpio, if you don't have anything at those earliest degrees of fixed signs, you're probably going to not feel this Pluto retrograde at all. But if you're an Aquarius, a Leo, or Taurus or Scorpio energies, like if you have Sun, Moon, Rising, or even if you have your midheaven or your Imam Coeli at those earliest, right around that 2 degree mark, yes, you are feeling it. You have been feeling it. You've been going through some massive transformations. For if you have your sun there, like if you were born between January 21st through 23rd, you know what I'm talking about. because your whole sense of identity and will has been going through this like composting. When we go through this retrograde, this is like your second or your third pass through of that energy that says, okay, what needs to be taken apart, what needs to be composted. And so when we have Pluto or any planet going into a retrograde, that retrograde is for a recalibration. What are we here to churn? What are we here to transform? What are we here to what's that word that I'm looking for? Regenerate. Okay, for all of us, it is a very regenerative time. And so, this regenerative time of Pluto is happening between that Aquarius of 2-degree point, where it is now, and it's going back to Capricorn of 29 degrees, where it's going to stop in October 11th, and then it's going to leave Capricorn and it's going to come back to Aquarius for good, at least for the next 250 something years. Okay. So, what I want you to really know about this intense transit is to recognize that this is the start of the last recalibration of Capricorn. We are going to see the last overhaul of Capricornian structures, of, crumbling down of like the worst parts of Capricorn, oppressive systems, oppressive governments, oppressive structures, that shadow of Capricorn. And we are going to mulch that so that we can regenerate what needs to come out of that. Systems, equitable systems that work for society, that work for humanity, that work for the people and the collective. And so, what is your part of that? If you have a natal planet in those degrees, you have a strong role, a strong part in that. For the rest of us, we are here to understand what we need to release, what we need to regenerate. Okay. So for this Pluto retrograde, stations on May 2nd at Aquarius of 2 degrees. Midpoint is in July when the sun is opposite of Pluto at that 0 degrees of Aquarius. So that's July 11th. On September 1st, Pluto enters Capricorn, re-enters Capricorn in reverse. So that's September 1st. And then October 11th is when Pluto now stations and moves direct again at that Capricorn of 29 degrees. Now, it'll take a little bit for Pluto to get going again. By the time Pluto hits November, it is going to leave Capricorn in our lifetimes. Okay. So this, we're going to say bye-bye to Capricorn. So notice how this Pluto retrograde is really regenerating those shadows of Capricorn, and how those shadows of Capricorn impact your life. How are you still stuck in different oppressive mindsets or oppressive systems? Do you still have old beliefs that you're still upholding or obliging to? And on an internal level, this is really looking at our colonial mentality. If you are somebody who is belongs to a community that has been colonized or repressed, and really uncovering the beliefs and that mindset. I'll be talking more about that later. But if you don't already know what colonial mindset is, it is the mindset of a person who has come from a colonized community, who has certain beliefs about the oppressive culture and society that they are more valuable or uphold, and you have shame about your own personal culture. Lots of deep insights to do there. And Pluto, use this Pluto retrograde to really unearth if you have any of those kinds of, thoughts around patriarchy or institutionalized oppression or different systems, and see what needs to dredge up, recalibrate, and regenerate. Okay, that's my Pluto retrograde talk. Okay, Now to this new format. Let's see if we can do this. I wrote some notes. I'm going to mostly be improvising this. We'll see if this goes. I want to try this forecasts, StarCasts for all signs. Now, I'm writing this for your rising sign, but listen to this for your rising sign, listen to this for your sun sign. See if this works for you and what this sparks in you. So, for my Aries friends, in May, I want you to turn what you value into your words, your messaging, and your voice. Knowing that as you work on how you're going to express yourself, how you're going to share your wisdom, how you're going to share your value to promote your work and your advocacy, your message is going to empower your reputation. So turn your values into your message. For my Taurus, this is all about you turning your own initiative to get things started. I know how hard it is for you, Taurus. So really light that fire and take and get things started so that you can turn your initiative and your action and your leadership into something that is so worthy, something that is so valuable. To see that how your action, how you get things started, is all about your value. As you can start to believe in your worth and believe in your value, this is going to double down and support your purpose, your motivation, and your ultimate why you do the work that you do. When you can really see your value, you can connect the dots to your beliefs and the purpose that your soul was born to do in this lifetime. For my Gemini folks, this is a great time for you to turn your restoration, making sure that you have rested your mind, body, and spirit, and get ready to re-emerge into action. If you have been able to take some rest, you're going to be ready to go. If you haven't been able to take some rest, schedule in your nap times, because you're going to need to feel really restored, because you got a lot of action that is starting to amplify for you. I want you to really trust your own inner power and leverage your ability to rest, to take action. I've seen it over and over again when we're stuck in that hustle mode of like, I got to work and do and do and do and do. We're actually working against ourselves. It seems counterintuitive and counterproductive, but when you rest, when you take a break, when you just like surrender and say, okay, I can do only what I can do, that's when the trust comes in, and that's when things start to bloom. It's nuts, but I've seen it happen over and over again. Okay, so Gemini, rest so that you can take action and trust in your inner power. My Cancer friends, this is all about turning impact into ease. You have been really burning the midnight oil. You have been so dedicated to helping your communities, and now it's time to take the gas off so that you can coast, that you can keep momentum without having to hustle and push. And when you stop hustling and pushing your impact and ease, I want you to start to notice how you are cultivating your connections. When you're establishing your relationships, it's not about like being so desperate and saying, hey, look at me, like I really want to do this. It's about finding that ease and that comfort within yourself so that you can like send out those invitations without that desperation, that people are going to be like, oh, yes, I see how comfortable you are in your own body, how easeful you are. Let's take action together. So, impact to ease so you can cultivate your connections. For my Leo friends, you have been working so hard on your ultimate mission. I want you to now see that what you do, how that is turning into collective energy, how that's turning into a culture that is even bigger than what you could possibly have imagined. So you're turning in your mission and creating a social culture. And this is now becoming a service to society. So what this means is I want you to see what you do as part of a bigger mission in society and the impact and a culture that you are creating in May. For Virgo, you're turning your why, you're turning your big purpose, like why you do everything, instead of just philosophizing and ideating on it, you're turning this into actionable action, taking action on your mission. So sometimes we can get just stuck in the purpose and talking, like why we're doing this and why we're so important and why we need to make a difference. But we're missing that one point of actually turning that purpose into action. And what the heck are you going to do about this? So make sure you are balancing your talk with your action this month. And also make sure that you're not only working, but you're also balancing that out with play. So yes to play, yes to taking action for my Virgos. For Libras, you are transforming your power into belief. And so you spent so much time learning how to trust yourself, learning how to trust your inner power. Now I want you to transform that into absolute belief. Put that into your own soul. Bury that into your symbolism, into your meaning, and help and make sure you're practicing lots of compassionate self-care to support this alchemy. For you, Libra, this is definitely an inside job. For my Scorpios, you're turning all of your most trusted connections into shared power. Yes. And so noting who you are, who you're here to collaborate and connect with, and what shared power you're building together. To do this, you need to speak your truth. What I mean by speaking your truth is to bust those myths. You do that really, really, really well. And, do not be afraid if some of the myths and some of your truth are going to turn others away, because those people that you're turning off are not your people. For my Sagittarius friends, you're changing all of the service to others that you have done. You've been just contributing and working and taking care of others. You're now turning that into true connection, because what you're noticing by all of the gifts that you have been giving, making sure that you're able to receive that gifts in a reciprocal way, and knowing and noticing the people who are reciprocating back to you, those relationships, that is where your true wealth is. For my Capricorn friends, here I hope you've been having some play. I hope you've been taking off some time and smelling the roses, noticing pleasure. And I want you to see how your play time, your pleasure time, your passion time really equates to your wellness, to your wholeness. That if you've been overworking and not making time for your pleasure, you are not well and full. And so to have this wholeness, to have this satisfaction through pleasure and play, allows you to prioritize yourself, prioritize your initiative, prioritizing the leadership role that you are here to enact. Okay, so making sure that you're integrating your pleasure into your daily practices for prioritizing yourself in May. For my Aquarian friends, you are turning your emotions into passions, noticing what riles you up, what excites you, what angers you, and turning that into your passion. Now, knowing that if you've been also working hard, Aquarius, know that it doesn't have to be so hard. So similar to what I was talking about for my Gemini friends, sometimes when you just take the gas off, take the hustle out, you'll notice you'll make more progress, especially when you're alchemizing and turning your emotions into active passions. Lastly, for my Pisces friends, if you've been caught into your thoughts and in your mind, I want you to bring that energy into your heart so you can process, not in your intellectual realm, but in your emotional realm. My Pisces friends, you know that this is your strength. Stop thinking about it, start feeling about it, and use your feelings, use your emotions to connect with your community. Express how you feel. This is going to call in your larger platforms and networks. Okay, my friends, this turned out to be a longer episode than I thought it was going to be, but I hope you find something valuable in there. I would love to hear in the comments what you think about this episode, if that May forecast spoke anything to you. And please share this with your friends, subscribe. Please spread this word of the Astrobrand method and this perspective of astrology, because if there's anything that I've been consistently hearing over like the last 6 weeks, my time in Astrology Hub. I'm so grateful for that time. But what I've heard consistently, and especially for the new followers, if you're new to me here on YouTube or on my podcast, is how have I not heard of you before? I'm so grateful that I finally found you. And I am so grateful for this message because I know that this is a time for my flame to grow, for this word to grow, for this message to grow. So if you have any people that could benefit from this perspective and viewpoint of astrology, please share this word, because I do not want to be a hidden gem any longer. All right, my friends. So go out, invoke your voice this month of May. Bye for now. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.